When you think of the word home, you probably imagine a safe, comfortable place. A place with a warm bed, clean running water, and strong walls to protect you from the outside world. But for millions of people across this planet, home is a daily battle for survival. We share this earth with communities who have built their lives in the most unforgiving, dangerous, and extreme environments imaginable. They live on the edge of boiling volcanoes, in the deepest frozen valleys, and completely cut off from the rest of human civilization. In this documentary, we are going to travel across the globe to witness the raw power of human resilience. We will explore 20 locations that challenge everything we know about safety and comfort. These are not movie sets. These are real places where real people wake up every single day. And make sure you watch until the very end, because our final location is the most extreme, unbelievable home in the history of mankind. Oymyakon, Russia, the coldest village. Imagine waking up, stepping outside your front door, and feeling your eyelashes freeze together in a matter of seconds. Welcome to Oymyakon, Russia. This isolated village is officially the coldest permanently inhabited place on the entire planet. Temperatures in this frozen valley have plummeted to a bone-chilling -71 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, it is so deeply cold that cars must be left running all day and all night. If you turn off the engine, the fluids will freeze solid, and the machine will be completely useless. The ground here is permanently frozen, meaning indoor plumbing is nearly impossible, and outdoor wooden outhouses are the standard. You cannot even use a regular ballpoint pen here, because the ink freezes instantly upon touching the paper. Crops absolutely cannot grow in this solid, icy dirt, so the local diet consists almost entirely of meat and fish. Yet, despite these brutal, unforgiving conditions, hundreds of people call this extreme wasteland their permanent home. They raise their families, send their children to school, and brave the freezing elements every single day. They are a living testament to human endurance, proving that we can adapt to even the most punishing environments on Earth. Dalol, Ethiopia, the hottest place. From the freezing cold, we move to the absolute extremes of boiling heat. This is Dalol, located in the Danakil Depression of Ethiopia. It looks like an alien planet, but it is very real, and it is incredibly dangerous. Dalol holds the record for having the highest average temperature of any inhabited place on Earth. The daily heat regularly pushes past 45 degrees Celsius. But the burning sun is only half of the danger here. The ground is literally bubbling with highly toxic, boiling acid pools. The air is thick with poisonous sulfur gases that can burn your lungs if you breathe them in deeply. So, why would anyone come here? The answer is simple: salt. For generations, local miners have traveled to this dangerous wasteland to cut heavy blocks of salt from the earth by hand. They endure the burning heat, the toxic air, and the lack of fresh water just to make a living. There are no actual houses here because the environment is too unstable, but nomadic tribes make this region their temporary home. It is a harsh, brutal existence where a single mistake or a lack of water can mean the difference between life and death. Centralia, USA, the burning town. Next, we travel to a town in America that has been slowly burning from the inside out for over 60 years. Welcome to Centralia, Pennsylvania. In the year 1962, a fire accidentally started in a local landfill. Unfortunately, that landfill was connected to a massive, complex network of underground coal mines. The fire quickly spread deep beneath the surface and ignited the coal. It has been burning continuously ever since. As the fire raged underground, the town above began to collapse. Deadly carbon monoxide gas leaked into homes. Huge sinkholes opened up in backyards, nearly swallowing children alive. The government ordered everyone to evacuate, and most people packed up their lives and left. Their houses were torn down, leaving behind empty streets and cracked roads venting toxic smoke. But a very small handful of stubborn residents absolutely refused to leave. They fought in court to stay in their homes, living directly on top of an active, uncontrollable underground inferno. Today, Centralia is essentially a ghost town, but remains a shocking example of how deeply attached people can become to their homes, even when the ground beneath them is literally on fire. Merapi, Australia, the underground city. In the middle of the harsh, unforgiving Australian outback, there's a town that you cannot even see from the surface, because the temperature here regularly reaches a blistering 50 degrees Celsius in the summer. The people of Merapi decided to do something brilliant. They moved entirely underground. This is the opal mining capital of the world, and the residents realized that the empty mine shafts were much cooler than the surface. So they started carving massive, complex homes directly into the solid rock. Today, over half of the town's population lives in these underground dugouts. Down here, the temperature stays perfectly cool and comfortable all year round, without needing any air conditioning. They have underground churches, underground hotels, and even an underground bookstore. Living below the dirt might sound claustrophobic to some, but to the people of Merapi, it is the ultimate survival strategy. They have turned a completely uninhabitable desert into a thriving, unique community by simply digging deep into the earth. It proves that sometimes the best way to conquer nature is to hide from it. Aogashima, Japan, the volcano village. Imagine building your family home directly inside the crater of an active volcano. That is exactly what the residents of Aogashima have done. Located hundreds of miles south of Tokyo, this tiny, isolated island is actually a giant, active volcano emerging from the Philippine Sea. The last time this volcano erupted, it was devastating. It killed nearly half of the island's population, forcing the survivors to flee for their lives. The island remained completely abandoned for 50 long years. Mawsynram, India, the wettest place. If you complain about a rainy day, you would not survive a week in Mawsynram, India. This small village, located high in the Khasi Hills, holds the Guinness World Record for being the wettest place on Earth. The village receives an unbelievable amount of rainfall every single year, mostly during the intense monsoon season. The rain is so heavy and relentless that it can deafen you if you are standing under a tin roof. To survive here, the locals have had to adapt in incredible ways. They wear full-body, turtle shell-shaped rain shields made of woven bamboo to keep their hands free while working in the fields. Because the endless rain rots standard wooden bridges very quickly, the villagers grow living bridges by carefully guiding the strong roots of rubber trees across wide rivers. These living bridges can take decades to fully form, but they never rot in the rain. Everything in Mawsynram is damp, moldy, and constantly wet. Keeping your clothes dry is nearly impossible. Yet, the people here embrace the water, living in harmony with the most extreme weather patterns on the globe. Longyearbyen, Norway, the town of darkness. Welcome to the northernmost town in the world. Longyearbyen is located on the Svalbard archipelago, high up in the Arctic Ocean. Life here is defined by two extreme factors: total darkness and deadly predators. Because it is so far north, the sun completely sets in October and does not rise again until March. For months, the town is plunged into absolute 24-hour darkness. But the cold and the dark are not the biggest dangers. This island is heavily populated by wild, hungry polar bears. There are actually more polar bears here than human beings. Because of this terrifying reality, it is a strict law that anyone leaving the main settlement must carry a high-powered rifle for protection. Students learn how to shoot guns at the local university. Interestingly, it is also technically illegal to die here. The ground is permafrost, meaning bodies buried in the cemetery will never decompose. If you become severely ill, you must fly to the mainland. It is a harsh, isolated life on the very edge of the world, where survival requires constant vigilance and a deep respect for nature. Kifuka, DRC, the lightning capital. Some locations are dangerous because of the ground, but in Kifuka, the danger comes from the sky. This small, incredibly remote mountain village in the Democratic Republic of the Congo was once recognized as the lightning capital of the world. Because of its unique elevation and location near the equator, intense, violent thunderstorms form here almost every single day of the year. The village experiences an average of 158 lightning strikes per square kilometer annually. That is a terrifying amount of electrical violence. Living here means constantly looking up in fear. There are no tall skyscrapers or lightning rods to protect the simple wooden and mud homes. Lightning strikes regularly hit the ground, causing severe injuries and tragic fatalities among the local population. When a storm rolls in, the entire village must seek whatever shelter they can find and hope the electricity does not find them. It is a high-stress environment where the weather is a daily, deadly threat, yet the community remains strongly tied to their ancestral lands despite the violent skies. Supai, Arizona, the hidden canyon village. Deep inside the legendary Grand Canyon, completely cut off from the modern world, lies the village of Supai. This is the capital of the Havasupai Indian Reservation, and it is widely considered the most remote community in the lower 48 United States. There are 0 roads leading to this town. You cannot drive a car here. The only way to reach Supai is by hiking 8 exhausting miles down a steep canyon, riding a mule, or taking an expensive helicopter. Because of this extreme isolation, Supai is the only place left in America where the Postal Service still delivers the mail using pack mules. The people here live surrounded by towering, red canyon walls that trap the intense summer heat. Flash floods are a constant, terrifying threat that can wipe out the village without warning. Despite the difficult access to basic medical care and supplies, the Havasupai people have lived in this hidden oasis for over 1,000 years. They protect their land fiercely, choosing the peace and extreme isolation of the canyon floor over the loud, busy modern world above them. Iquitos, Peru, the unreachable city. Imagine a massive, bustling city with nearly 500,000 people, busy markets, and traffic jams. Now imagine that there are absolutely no roads connecting this city to the rest of the world. This is Iquitos, Peru. It is the largest city on Earth that cannot be reached by a car. It is completely surrounded by the dense, impenetrable Amazon rainforest and a massive Amazon river. If you want to leave or enter Iquitos, you only have 2 options: flying on an airplane or take a long, dangerous boat ride that can last for several days. Because everything must be shipped in by river or air, the cost of living can be complicated. The city relies heavily on the river for trade, food, and transportation. When the river floods during the rainy season, entire neighborhoods built on stilts are submerged in water. It is an island of concrete and noise floating in an endless sea of wild jungle. The people of Iquitos have built a thriving, energetic society in total geographic isolation, proving that human civilization can grow and expand anywhere. Mijingo Island, the crowded rock. If you value your personal space, Mijingo Island will be your worst nightmare. This tiny, rocky island is located in the middle of Lake Victoria, bordered by Kenya and Uganda. It is about the size of half a football field, but incredibly, nearly 1,000 people live packed onto it. It is one of the most densely populated places on the entire planet. The entire island is covered in small, cramped shacks made from scrap metal and wood. The alleys between the homes are so narrow that 2 people can barely walk past each other. So, why do so many people crowd onto this tiny rock? The waters surrounding the island are incredibly rich in Nile perch, a very valuable fish. Fishermen from different countries crowd onto Mijingo to make their fortune, creating a highly intense, cramped microeconomy. There are bars, brothels, and pharmacies, all packed onto a rock. The living conditions are highly unsanitary, and territorial disputes between Kenya and Uganda have caused severe political tension. It is a place where money drives people to endure absolute claustrophobia. Arica, Chile, the driest city. Water is the most essential element for human survival, but in Arica, Chile, it is incredibly rare. Located in the Atacama Desert, Arica holds the title for being one of the driest inhabited cities on the planet. Some weather stations here have recorded periods of over 14 years without a single drop of rain falling from the sky. The landscape is so incredibly dry and alien that NASA has actually used the nearby desert to test their Mars rovers. Despite having almost zero natural rainfall, over 200,000 people live here. They survive by relying entirely on water pumped from distant rivers and underground aquifers. Because the air is so dry, nothing rots. Ancient mummies found in the sand near Arica are actually older than the mummies of Egypt, preserved perfectly by the total lack of moisture. Growing a garden or a lawn is a massive luxury that requires constant artificial watering. The people of Arica have learned to build a modern, functioning society in an environment that is aggressively hostile to life, surviving entirely through human engineering and careful water management. Tristan da Cunha, the isolated island. If you want to escape from society completely, this is where you go. Tristan da Cunha is the most remote inhabited archipelago in the world. Located in the middle of the vast South Atlantic Ocean, it is over 1,500 miles away from the nearest continental landmass in South Africa. There is no airport on this island. The only way to get here is by taking a rough, dangerous boat journey that takes at least 6 days. Only about 250 people live here, all sharing just a handful of family names. They share their food, farm the rocky land together, and rely heavily on fishing. The isolation is extreme. If you suffer a severe medical emergency, you cannot call a helicopter. You simply have to wait days for a passing ship. The island is also an active volcano, which erupted in 1961, forcing the entire population to evacuate to England. But incredibly, as soon as it was safe, almost everyone chose to return to their lonely rock in the ocean. They prefer the quiet, deeply connected community life over the chaos of the modern world. Mount Washington, the worst weather. You do not want to build a house here. Mount Washington, located in New Hampshire, proudly claims to have the absolute worst weather in the world. This small mountain peak sits directly in the path of several major storm tracks, creating a nightmare of wind and ice. For nearly 60 years, Mount Washington held the world record for the highest wind speed ever recorded on the surface of the Earth, an unbelievable 231 miles per hour. That is faster than a Category 5 hurricane. The weather here is so violent that the small team of weather observers who live and work at the summit station have to literally chain their building to the solid ground so it does not blow away. Stepping outside during a winter storm is life-threatening. The wind can easily pick up a grown human and throw them off the mountain. The scientists who live here work in shifts, enduring freezing temperatures, zero visibility, and winds so loud it makes sleeping nearly impossible. They risk their lives every day just to collect weather data in the most chaotic atmospheric conditions on Earth. Itokakorormite, the frozen edge. Just pronouncing the name of this town is difficult, but living here is an incredible test of survival. Itokakorormite is one of the most isolated settlements in Greenland, and therefore the world. Located on the eastern coast, it is locked in thick, dangerous sea ice for 9 months out of the year. During those 9 months, ships absolutely cannot reach the town. The only way in or out is by a rare, expensive helicopter flight, if the harsh Arctic weather allows it. Around 450 people live here, surrounded by endless miles of empty tundra, massive glaciers, and freezing water. The local grocery store is only restocked by ships a couple of times during the short summer, so the residents must rely heavily on traditional hunting. They use dog sleds to travel across the frozen sea, to hunt seals, walruses, and even polar bears to survive the long, dark winter. It is a life lived entirely on the extreme edge of human capability, where a deep knowledge of the ice and a strong community bond are the only things keeping them alive. Gonvai, Benin, the lake village. In the West African country of Benin, there's a massive village where children learn how to paddle a boat before they learn how to walk. This is Gonvai, often called the Venice of Africa. Over 400 years ago, the local Tafinu people fled to this massive lake to hide from powerful, aggressive tribes who were capturing people to sell into slavery. Because their enemies believed a religious myth that prevented them from entering the water, the lake provided the perfect, safe sanctuary. The people built their homes entirely on wooden stilts, standing high above the water. Today, over 20,000 people live in this incredible floating city. There are absolutely no cars and no roads. Every single activity, from going to school, to visiting the doctor, to shopping at the floating market, is done in a wooden canoe. The water is their street, their playground, and their livelihood. They farm fish by building complex underwater bamboo fences. While the water keeps them safe, it also presents massive challenges with sanitation and rising water levels during storms. Yet, they continue to thrive on the water. The radiation zone, the illegal settlers. In 1986, the absolute worst nuclear disaster in human history occurred at the Chernobyl power plant. The nearby city of Pripyat was evacuated forever, leaving behind a massive, highly radioactive wasteland known as the Exclusion Zone. The government strictly banned anyone from ever living there again, warning that the invisible radiation would kill them. But shortly after the evacuation, a group of elderly residents made a shocking decision. They snuck back in, known as the Samosli or self-settlers. These people, mostly older women, refused to abandon their ancestral homes. They chose to face the terrifying, invisible threat of deadly radiation rather than live as refugees in a strange city. Today, a small number of them still live completely off the grid inside the toxic zone. They grow their own vegetables in the radioactive dirt, drink water from the contaminated wells, and live in total isolation. They live without running water or reliable electricity, surrounded by abandoned, crumbling ghost towns and wild wolves. It is a powerful, dangerous example of how deeply people are tied to their homeland. Hashima Island, the concrete ruin. Sometimes a place becomes so crowded and extreme that it eventually collapses. Hashima Island, located off the coast of Japan, was once the most densely populated place on Earth. In the mid-20th century, this tiny rock was heavily mined for underwater coal. To house the massive workforce, the mining company built huge, interconnected concrete apartment blocks directly on the island. Over 5,000 people were crammed into a space the size of a few football fields. There are no parks, no green trees, and barely any sunlight reaching the narrow courtyard streets. It was a chaotic, crowded labyrinth of concrete and coal dust. The working conditions in the deep underwater mines were brutal and incredibly dangerous. When the coal ran out in the 1970s, the mining company closed the facility and everyone left almost overnight. Today, Hashima Island is completely abandoned, a crumbling, silent ghost island slowly decaying into the sea. It stands as a dark monument to extreme industrialization and a grim reminder of how far people will go and what they will endure just to earn a paycheck. La Paz, Bolivia, the high-altitude city. If you travel to this major city, The very first thing you will notice is that you cannot breathe properly. Welcome to La Paz, Bolivia, the highest administrative capital in the entire world, sitting at an unbelievable altitude of almost 12,000 feet above sea level. The air here is dangerously thin. Visitors who step off the airplane often suffer from severe altitude sickness, experiencing terrible headaches, dizziness, and extreme nausea. The oxygen levels are so low that fire burns differently and water boils at a much lower temperature. The city itself is built into a steep, dramatic canyon. The wealthier residents live at the bottom where the air is slightly thicker, while the poorer neighborhoods climb the incredibly steep, freezing sides of the mountains. To solve the massive problem of traffic on these vertical streets, the city built the world's largest urban cable car network. Millions of people commute to work floating high above the clouds. Living in La Paz requires an intense physical adaptation. The locals have literally evolved to have larger lungs just to survive in the sky. The ISS, the ultimate extreme home. For our final location, we leave the surface of the Earth entirely. This is the ultimate, most dangerous, and most unbelievable place human beings have ever lived. The International Space Station. Floating 250 miles above our heads, traveling at a mind-blowing speed of 17,500 miles per hour, this incredible machine is a permanent home for a small crew of astronauts. Outside the thin metal walls, there is no air, no pressure, and temperatures swing violently from boiling hot to freezing cold. The environment is instantly, fatally deadly. Inside, the astronauts live in zero gravity. They have to strap themselves to the wall just to sleep so they do not float away. They drink highly filtered, recycled water that used to be their own sweat and urine. Their muscles and bones slowly deteriorate because of the lack of gravity, requiring them to exercise intensely for 2 hours every single day. If a piece of space debris hits the station or a fire breaks out, there is nowhere to run. Yet for over 20 years, humans have continuously lived in this extreme, alien environment. It is the absolute peak of human engineering and willpower, proving that our home is not just defined by where we are born, but by how far we are willing to go. Mount Merapi, Indonesia, living with a fire mountain. Mount Merapi, whose name literally translates to Mountain of Fire, is one of the most active and dangerous volcanoes in the world. Located on the island of Java, it has erupted dozens of times over the last century, often with deadly consequences. Yet, despite the constant threat of pyroclastic flows, superheated clouds of gas and volcanic rock that race down the slopes at hundreds of miles per hour, thousands of people live directly on its fertile flanks. The volcanic ash provides incredibly rich soil for farming, allowing communities to thrive between eruptions. For many residents, the mountain is not just a geological hazard, but a sacred spiritual entity. They participate in ancient rituals to appease the volcano, choosing to stay in their ancestral villages even when evacuation orders are issued. Living in the shadow of Merapi is a precarious balance between the life-giving properties of the earth and the ever-present danger of a sudden, violent eruption. From the deepest, darkest frozen valleys of Russia to the burning underground fires of America, from the crowded, polluted waters of Africa to the silent, deadly vacuum of outer space, we have traveled to the absolute edges of what is physically possible. These 20 locations prove one undeniable fact. Human beings are the most adaptable, resilient creatures on the face of the earth. We do not just survive the storms, the heat, the cold, and the isolation. We build our lives right in the middle of them. We carve our homes into the solid rock. We anchor them to the highest, windiest peaks, and we launch them into the stars. The next time you lock your front door and lay down in a warm, comfortable bed, take a moment to appreciate it. And remember the millions of strong, brave people who are out there right now, surviving and thriving in houses you simply wouldn't believe. Thank you so much for watching.